Hey folks, how's it going? It's been a little while since I did an update, and I apologize for that. Had a lot going on, but I wanted to come on here, talk about a couple of things, and give you an update on what I've been doing. There's a lot going on that we could talk about, that a lot of the other prepper channels are talking about. There's the war in Ukraine and U.S. getting ever closer to being in direct conflict with Russia. You've got tensions continuing to ratchet up with China. In fact, China has now announced that a U.S. warship has illegally entered Chinese waters. So there's more tension between the U.S. and China. China and Russia are reaffirming or reinforcing their ties with each other as allies. The banking crisis, it's continuing to pick up speed, and it's looking worse. You're not seeing a lot of it in the news, because they're not wanting it to be covered, but it is getting worse. So we're on I don't want to say the verge of an economic collapse, because we've actually, first of all, Fernando Aguirre with the Modern Survivalist, he lived through a economic collapse in Argentina, and the way he describes it is an economic collapse does not happen overnight. It's something that happens slowly, much like water going down a drain. And it starts really, really slow at first. You almost don't even notice it unless you know what to look for. And then as it circles the drain, getting closer and closer to that hole, it slowly picks up speed. We've been circling that drain for a while. I would say probably for the past 4 to 5 years, if not a little bit longer. And it's picking up speed. We're not there yet. We still got a little ways to go, but it is happening. We are in an economic collapse situation. I've said that before. And again, I want to reiterate that it's not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something that happens slowly, and as it progresses, it picks up speed. And then one day, it just falls apart. Where we are, I would hesitate to say, but we are well along that circling path to everything falling apart. Again, we're not there yet, but we're well on our way. I've been talking with a lot of people in the area I live in, and when I was buying lumber for my shop, I was being told how a lot of people were buying lumber and building chicken coops. Hens of laying age are almost impossible to find where I'm at. Chicks are available, but they get bought up fast. People have been buying them by the boxfuls, basically, because of the issues with food prices going up, egg prices getting extremely high, the availability of eggs going down. So there's a lot of concerns there. There's just a lot of things that we could talk about. That's not really the point of this video. I don't want to go into detail on any of those things right now, because we all know there's a lot of things happening. Almost too many to keep track of, to be honest with you, because no matter which way you look, no matter what you look at, something is wrong somewhere. It's too much for a lot of people to keep track of, and it's stressful. It can weigh on you, and sometimes it seems like there's so much wrong. Things are falling apart so fast that you just don't know what to do. That brings me to what this video is actually about. What I'm doing. I've been trying to build, as I said in my last video, I'm no longer at my previous employer. I'm currently looking for another job, but right now I am living off of savings, which is not necessarily a good thing to do. And my knife making business and my blacksmithing business, which I'm trying to take full time, but that's a slow thing to get going, because as I was working so many hours I couldn't really devote a lot of time to building the business. So now I'm having to take off at a really fast run. It's like 0 to 90 in 3 seconds, as opposed to building it up over time. I'm really having to buckle down and try to get that going. So I've been focused on building knives for people, and I've been making some sales, which is good. Not quite enough to cover everything that I need to cover. So I am looking for another job currently. And that's hard to do in this market as well, because a lot of the jobs that I'm finding are either not secure, or they're the lowest end jobs. And there comes a point when you have to take whatever you can get, right? Just so you can be making money. But it reaffirms the fact that you really need to be taking, not just watching what's going on around you, not just talking about what's going on around you, but taking actual physical steps, getting out, doing things to set yourself up so that regardless of what happens, you're secure. Be it income, be it food production, be it water, be it power, whatever, what have you. And that's what I've been focused on. Mainly on the income, but I've been working on other things as well, and I want to show you guys some of that. 3 or 4 years ago, actually it's been longer than that, it's been about 8 years ago, one of my trips to the flea market, which is one of my favorite things to do because I find a lot of prepping materials up there. There was a guy selling 55-gallon metal drums that had been used in the beverage industry for transporting syrup. Now, this was before they started switching over to all the plastic drums for that. The metal drums were lined with plastic bags, and the syrup was in the bags. Anyway, he had a few of those from one of the soft drink distributors, and he was selling them. So I bought a couple of them and I put them in my yard, and they've been sitting out there, and I completely forgot I had them. I never thought about them. But now that I've had all this time off, I've been thinking about growing plants, selling vegetable plants at the farmer's market and the flea market. And when I start harvesting a bunch of my food, any overproduction, selling that at the flea market, the farmer's market, as a way of just adding extra income into my stream here. And it occurred to me as I was trying to build beds to expand my garden area so I could grow more stuff, I thought about those. And I was trying to figure out how I could use them. You know, metal drums, they're not going to be the best for rain catchment because over time they will rust. I don't have to worry about chemicals because they are clean. I mean, they were clean because they were carrying soft drink syrup in plastic bags. So they weren't carrying harsh chemicals. So I took one of the drums and I cut it into 3 rings. And I made 3 very small raised beds out of that. I'll probably do the same thing to the other one. But here they are right behind me. You can see my blacksmith shop right there. I'm almost got it done. I just got 3 more pieces of roofing metal I got to put up there, and then work on some of the walls. This is just the enclosure here for where my forge and my anvil is going to be. But the shop itself is done finally, except for maybe some siding just to make it look a little bit better. But what I did was I took those 3 rings where I cut the drum down and I made raised beds here. I've got carrots in this one right here. And these carrots, I don't know how that's going to work out, but I'm going to try it. I planted them in my old garden last year. They sprouted, but when you tried to pick them, they were only about that long. You know, not even half an inch long. So I didn't do anything with them. Well, they resprouted this year. I don't know how this is going to play out. It's an experiment. I'm curious to see what's going to happen. I dug them up. When I dug them up, they were about as thick as a pencil. Really knotty. Some of them were fat, some of them were bent. And it's because of all the heavy clay in the soil I have here. So I thought about, and again, I don't know how this is going to work. It might not work at all. If it doesn't, I've learned something from it. If it does work, again, I've learned something from it. So I transplanted them to this, where I've got some compost and stuff in, and it's not as heavily compacted, so they can grow down a little bit easier. Hopefully they'll grow a little bit better. They've transplanted well. I mean, there's only one of them that looks like it might die. The rest of them are all looking really, really good. And let me get over here where you can see, get you a better look at that. They're all looking really, really good. They haven't minded all this cold weather, all these, we had a couple of nights where, actually about 4 nights where it got down below freezing. It didn't mind that at all. But again, I put these rings down over some cardboard and weed block fabric, filled it with a thin layer of wood chips, and then put compost and stuff on top of that. And now I've got 3 beds here that I can grow in. I'll probably do the same with the other 55-gallon drum. This is something my grandmother used to do. She would take anything like that and cut the bottom off of it and put it in the ground and use it for like a miniature raised bed. So I kind of got the idea from her. But I've got that. Some of the old pallet wood that I've been holding on to for forever. From all those pallets I broke down. A bunch of it from there and some right over here. Well, I've actually, I actually used some, not just on the shelter, on my shop, but I made a nice looking little raised bed here. This thing is like 3 foot by 7 foot. It's in full shade right now because the sun's going down, but I put in some weed block at the bottom of this and put in a layer about 4 to 5 inches worth of wood chips, and then I covered that over with compost, and some of it was the Super Soil compost blend that I get from the farm supply near me, and the rest of it was what was in here. All that compost that I've been turning and turning and turning, it was breaking down. It was slow. It was going slow, but it was breaking down. There were worms in it. It was taking longer than it should in a good compost system, but it was breaking down. So I used that in there, and then the Super Soil compost blend from the farm store I put on top of that. So I've got this, I'm filling back up. I'm cutting some of these logs up down here. That's what this log right here is for. I'm trying to square off the ends to make anvil stands and anvil stumps over here for my shop. And a lot of what's going in here is just handfuls of all this green grass that's growing. Shavings from all this wood cutting that I've been doing. I'm going to compost that. I've got to get out here and cut grass for the first time this year. I'll probably dump a bunch of that in there. And then I'm going to come over here and start on the main garden site. This thing's been grown. It got overgrown last year, and it got kind of out of hand. But I've got the fence down. I'm ready to come in with the mower, mow all of that flat, chop it up really good, and then come in, clean all that up, and that's going into the compost as well. There's a lot of straw mulch in there, and there's a lot of weeds growing. All that's going to get mulched. Clean that off as good as I can, then I'm going to come in till it. I'll probably start mowing the grass out here tomorrow. Although at some point tomorrow, I've also got to put on the last 3 sheets of that roofing metal. So I'm ready for when the rain sets in this weekend. That way I can actually work on I can do some forging and work even while it's raining, which I haven't been able to do up until now, to be honest with you. Because my forge was out in the open, and I just can't get out and forge if I'm standing in the pouring rain. This will give me a shelter. I'll be able to forge regardless. There's my shop. It's I've still got some work to do to it, but again, those 3 roofing panels, that'll have it. For the most part, it's going to be functional. I'm going to be putting some siding on here at some point, but I can take a little bit more time about doing that. Right now, I've got custom orders for knives that I'm focused on trying to get done, because, you know, income comes before any other project, to be honest with you, especially when you're unemployed or semi-self-employed. So that's my priority right now, is completing those custom orders and making sure I can get the finished product to my customer. That's the priority. I've got all these other things going. At some point, the old shed that I was working my shop out of, and it's hard to believe I was working out of an 8x8 foot tool shed me and my father slapped together one summer. This thing right here. That one over there, the shed, or the shed portion of it is 10 by 14 with an additional 10 foot by 10 foot area for the forge and the anvil. So I've basically gone from an 8 foot by 8 foot to a 10 by 24 foot work area. So I've tripled actually more than tripled my usable workspace. I'm still trying to get used to that. I've got to set everything up, but again, the point of this video, these are things I'm doing. I'm raising these, I'm building these raised beds. I've got a lot more I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be taking some more of that scrap lumber, probably right about here. I'm going to put another raised bed for growing potatoes. I'm going to try one more time. I'm going to try to grow some potatoes in the straw dirt potato tower. Again, the soil over there in my main garden spot is just really heavy with clay. It's really compacted. No matter how much I try to till it or mulch it, it stays really compacted. So root crops like carrots or potatoes, things like that, they don't grow really well over there because the ground is so hard, so compacted. So I'm going to try to do a bunch of this, and instead of growing potatoes in a small 5-gallon bucket, which I think didn't work. It didn't work for me last year because the buckets were so small. I believe that the potatoes just didn't have enough room and enough soil to grow in. So I think there was a struggle with that there. So I'm going to try this. It's going to be a larger bed. It's going to be more like a 3 foot by 3 foot bed, or 3.5 foot by 3.5 foot is what it's actually going to be. It's an odd shape or it's an odd size because some of the scrap wood over here, I've got a bunch of 7 foot 6-inch planks that I'm just cutting in half, and I'm trying to make the most out of every square inch of lumber I've gotten from all these pallets. So I'll do that here. Eventually that shed over there, the old shop over there, will be taken apart, and that entire spot over there is going to be freed up for more raised beds. And again, the goal the goal here with all of this is to plant really heavy in my garden, have all of these raised beds planted, grow heavy in those, and continue to expand. And any extra vegetable plants I have, sell those at the farmer's market or the flea market down the road. And likewise with any extra produce I have, sell that. Use what I need, but any excess is going to get sold or bartered away. You know, being tight on money right now, having to watch every penny, I want to make the most of everything I've got. Any extra money I can get from something I'm already doing or something I can do at little to no cost, I want to make that money. And that's just the kind of things that I'm doing right now. I've got all my fruit trees are actually blooming out. I've lost, let's see, 1, 2, 3. I've lost 3 fruit trees. They've died. They put out they leafed out last year, but this year they're dead. I don't know what happened. I've got to look into that. But I've still got my big pear tree. I've got 2 peach trees and a plum tree. Those seem to be doing okay. I've got my 2 apple trees that they leafed out really good last year, but they haven't bloomed, or they haven't bloomed and they haven't set fruit. And they've been in the ground for 6 years. So I really need to get in there and fertilize them and feed them really heavily this year, see if that helps. That helped my issue with the brown rot on my peach tree last year. So that's one of the things I've got going on that I'm going to be doing this year as well. And then one of them's got a ton of suckers growing off of it. I've got to prune that thing down come this fall. Again, you know, it's a lot of this work, a lot of the problems I've had were my own fault because I didn't get out here and manage everything the way I needed to. But, you know, it's really hard to do. You're a single parent. You've got a job that's working you 60, 70, 80 hours a week. So it doesn't leave you a lot of time after you take care of the normal household responsibilities. It's just hard to get everything done by yourself. But I'm not trying to make excuses. That's just a fact of the situation. And I understand it's my fault that I've had a lot of these problems. There's things I could have done better, and I'm learning from it. Hopefully you can learn from my mistakes as we go along. But this is some of the things that I'm working on. I've got more raised beds going to go in. Again, I've got a whole bunch of plants already started from seed. I had to carry them into the house 3 or 4 nights because it dropped below freezing. And I didn't want to lose my plants. And I don't have a greenhouse to put them in. And I've just got too many for that little bitty cold frame I had. And I haven't had an opportunity to build a new cold frame that would work for the amount of seeds that I'm trying to start. So my next big project, once I get this thing completely done and set up, aside from the gardening projects I've got going on here, the next expensive big money project I've got, sometime this summer or this fall, I want a greenhouse out here. I want to build me a greenhouse, even if it's just an 6 foot by 8 foot or an 8 foot by 8 foot or what have you. I would take this shed right here and turn it into a greenhouse, but there's some rot issues with the flooring, so that's not going to be an option. But a lot of the lumber in the frame is still usable, and I'm looking at using that along with the rest of my pallet wood over here to work on a chicken coop so I can get those chickens in that I wanted to get in. Assuming I could even find any. I'll probably have to find some chicks somewhere and try to build a brooder box. I'm not set up for that though, so I've got that issue I've got to deal with, and I've just got to prioritize things, you know, folks. You know, I got so many things I need to work on, so much I got to do, but I've got to prioritize things, and some of them may have to get pushed off. But no, with all the uncertainty into the world right now, all the uncertainty here in the United States, it's important to focus on that and keep track of what's going on so you're prepared and prep for that. But at some point, you also have to shut off the news and get out and do things, take real active steps to prepare yourself. Sitting and watching the news is not going to get you ready. Yeah, you can order freeze-dried food and all that stuff, that'll help. But if things fall apart like they did in Argentina and countless other countries, it's things like these raised beds, this garden, building this network of people and selling and bartering your extra produce, things like that. That's what's going to get you through an SHTF or a collapse. So that's what I've been focused on here lately. And I just wanted to share that with you. That, yeah, the news is important. All the events going on are important to keep track of. But you really have to get out and do something. You have to get out and get active, be proactive, get things done. Who knows how much time we've got left. This could drag on for another year or two, although I don't see how. But they always seem to find a way to make it drag on a little bit longer. Or it could fall apart in the next 3 to 6 months. Who knows? All I know is we need to do what we can while we have the time. And these are things that will benefit me now. And that's what I've been focused on for the past week and a half. Anyway, that's all I've got. I just wanted to share that with you. I appreciate you guys watching. Like, share, subscribe if you haven't. And as always, folks, take care, stay safe, look out for your families, look out for each other when you can. And until next time, folks, I'll catch you later.